Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k Tyranids. So in today's video we're going to give you 10 top tips for Tyranid players. That was quite hard to say. 10 top tips for Tyranid players. So we're going to be breaking this down. I believe we did do this on the Necron channel, and we're now going to do this on the Tyranid channel, obviously, so it's relating to Tyranid players. So let's get in with number 1, which is Synapse. So why is Synapse important this edition? First of all, there is a thing called battle shock. So if you are below half strength, or if your one model unit is below half the amount of wounds, then you must take a battle shock test in your command phase. You roll 2d6, and if the result is greater or equal to your leadership's characteristic, then you pass the test. But if you do fail the test, then a few problems can arise. First of all, your objective control for the unit goes to 0. Second of all, you can't be using stratagems until they're not battle shocked. And third of all, they cannot be doing standard fallback moves. They must use the desperate escape tests. Now the main one here is objective control, going to 0. This is going to happen, this battle shock test, before you've actually scored your primary objective points in your command phase, because you've got to do battle shock first. So therefore, all of a sudden you might think that you've just scored 5 BP on an objective, but then you take a test, you fail the test. You've now not got control of that objective anymore, so therefore you don't score that 5 points. So it can be a big deal. The stratagems is also a pretty big deal. Depends on if you were going stratagem heavy for that particular turn. Now we've got quite a few units that have the Synapse keyword within their data card. Here's a few examples: Tyranid Warriors, a Tervagon, a Neuro Tyrant, a Hive Tyrant, Zone Throats. There's plenty more options that have got Synapse within the actual index. We've also got an enhancement to add it to a character, which gives a better range of 9 inches, because normally it's just a 6-inch Synapse range. So any model that's within 6 inches of a model that's got Synapse will be considered to be within Synapse range. Now what is Synapse? In fact, we've spoken about Synapse and battle shock, but what actually is Synapse? When you're doing your battle shock test, you simply roll 3 dice instead of 2 when you're doing your battle shock test, which means you're more likely to succeed because you're adding the combination of all 3 of the dice. If you've got leadership value of 8+, obviously with 2 dice, that's quite difficult to achieve. It's unlikely, well, it's not unlikely, but it's more likely that you fail than succeed there. But with 3 dice, then you're more likely to pass. So in some situations, it will matter. That's number 1. Let's move into number 2, divide auras. There's quite a few units within our index that have certain aura abilities that are buffing as well as debuffing, in fact. And you'll be quite tempted to have a max unit of these said units. For example, we've got Zone Throats. Zone Throats you can take either 3 or 6. Now if you take 6 and they've got 2 aura abilities here. In fact, let's go through these aura abilities and I'll explain what they do. So Spirit Leech, which is an aura for enemy units within 6 inches. When they fail battle shock, they suffer D3 mortal wounds, and one of our models regains these 3 lost wounds. That's the first aura. The second aura is Warp Field. So while a friendly Tyranid unit is within 6 inches of your Zone Throats, they can have a 6+ invulnerable save. So now let's go back to the beginning of what we were talking about. If you've got a unit of 6 of them, that aura is only in one location on the battlefield, whereas if you split these into 2 units of 3 in your list, you've got 2 different auras going off in 2 completely different locations. So you're going to be doing the debuff aura with the Spirit Leech, as well as the buffing aura with the Warp Field. Yes, you've got a smaller footprint, but you've got better unit coherency, because you only need to be within unit coherency of 1 model, not 2, because there's only 3 of them. And second of all, yeah, you're going to be putting them in different locations, so that gives you a little bit more of a spread out range of your invuln save and the debuff. In fact, I've got another example before we move on, which is Venom Throats with their Foul Spores aura. While friendly units within 6 inches, they get the benefits of cover, and non-monsters will also get stealth. Again, you could divide that up by 3. It doesn't matter how many models are in the unit to gain the aura ability, so why not just split them into 2? Makes more sense. Number 3, know your foe. Now what does know your foe mean? It means knowing a little bit more about your opponent's army. And that's pre-game realistically, because there's plenty of factions within the 40k game, and that's a lot to learn. I'm not expecting you to go out and learn 30 odd factions, different unique abilities, stratagems and units, because that's going to be quite difficult, although that is what the pros probably do. But you go to your local gaming club, your local meta, or just the people that you play with the most, learn their abilities, learn their army rules, learn their common stratagems, If you're playing against, for example, Necrons, learn what reanimation protocols is and learn why it's so good and what's the best ways that a Necron player would use, or the best things to use to synergize their specific rule. If you're playing against Space Marines, why is Oath of Moment so good? Why is Guilliman so good? The more you learn about your opponent player's faction, the better you will be as a player, because you'll be then defending and counteracting what they're going to be doing in game. So yeah, definitely know your foe. On to number 4, have units that can score. Don't forget, we are playing with a secondary missions deck when you're playing competitive play. It's not all just about primaries. Yes, primaries are included in this scoring, but you don't know what cards you're going to get when we're playing the Leviathan deck. So you could randomly pull Engage on all fronts. It could be Investigate Signal, Area Denial, Capture Enemy Outpost. If you've not got the units within your list to deal with these cards as they come up, you're not going to score them. You're going to have to go an entire turn and then potentially you're going to burn it at the end of your turn because you've not scored it. Yes, you do gain a command point, but you've got an entire turn without scoring that card, whereas your opponent is going to be scoring the cards each and every battle round. So you ideally need to be scoring the cards to get rid of them rather than burning them away. Now we do have the option of actually burning it in your command phase once per battle with new orders. That costs you a command point. You can only do that once though, so that you can't be just spamming that every time. You really do need units. So a Biovore with the Spore Mines can throw out the Spore Mines to do some actions. Gargoyles are fantastic for scoring. They can virtually go anywhere because of their speed. Ripper Swarms can do stuff for cheap. Gargoyles have got the... not gargoyles. Gene Stealers have got the Infiltrate keyword, so they can potentially be out there nice and early onto the battlefield. Maybe you get Secure No Man's Land nice and early. Ravenous can keep popping in and out with their Death from Below ability. So these are the kind of units you need within your list to score these secondary objectives. Number 5, index cards are good for now. I say for now because Tyranids are just about to get a codex at some point soon. I don't know what they're going to do with these index cards because this is of course just the launch index. Are the data cards going to stay the same? Maybe yes, probably yes in fact. Maybe they need to add more. There's probably going to be an FAQ or a printout where we can add more information because we don't know what high fleets we're going to get. This is just the index launch after all. But why this is on this top 10 tips is because every single game I've played, I've used the index cards. Not only for myself, but for my opponent to also have a glance at. It builds a bit of a trust between you and your opponent. Because if you just start saying things and you get it wrong, and you only realise you've got it wrong a few turns later, it leaves a bit of a bad taste to the game. So it's better to get the information correct and quickly. You don't want to be scrolling through your phone for 5 minutes looking for a certain ability or a certain stat and your phone's out of battery and all sorts of weirdness is going off. Just have the cards in front of you. It just makes life so much easier. Number 6, use screening units. What do we mean by screening units? Well, first of all, let's look at this image here. We've got some Ripper Swarms screening off a Tyrannofex, and we've got some Termagant screening off a Tervigon. And what do we mean by that? We mean we don't want these big monsters getting charged. They're not the best in melee, they're not the best in combat, they want to be firing. Now, of course, monsters can fire out of combat, that's not a big deal. Monsters have big guns, never tire. But you don't want those big heavy hitters, Terminators with Thunderhammers and the Custodies going in there with all their rerolls. You don't want these big monsters that are quite a lot in points, in terms of an investment. You don't want to be losing them out to melee. If they've got to be taken out at range, then so be it. But you've got these little screens that are going to block your opponent from actually getting to them. And that doesn't necessarily just mean within the game itself. It could be from Deep Strike. They're coming in from reserves. If you're blocking that space, they've got to stay 9 inches away when they come in. So you're blocking that whole area by just having a unit in a certain location. Maybe it's your corner of your own deployment zone. There's lots of different ways of screening off. You've also got screens such as infiltrate units. Units such as Gene Stealers. Gene Stealers have got infiltrate. You can pop them in to the center of the battlefield in your deployment zone. That's going to block your opponent from doing the same thing with their infiltrate units because they can't come within 9 inches when they're deploying. So that's another way of using screens. On to number 7, invest in box sets. Now over the years, GW have given out some pretty decent box sets that are saving. There's quite a lot of savings within these box sets because there's a lot of models in there and they've reduced the price of the RRP because you're buying them in one box. Now for example, right now we've got the starter set, the Leviathan starter set. Now you do get a lot of marine stuff in there which you could just sell off or swap out with another Marine player and then get the Tyranid version back, so you can have 2 lots of the Tyranid side of the box set, which could be a way of doing it. Or just like I said, sell off the Marine side, get some of your money back. You've also got the Combat Patrol box, which is good value. If you add up the individual prices of all the models, you'll find that there's a big savings there. And even if you get hold of some of the older ones, some of the older kits from a few years ago, we had the Battle Force box for Tyranids. We also had the Apocalypse box. You get a lot of models in there, or a lot of good value in there for a decent price. Now, of course, some of those will be virtually extinct now because they are older boxes. You may find them on eBay, but they may be overpriced. But what I'm trying to get at is, when you see a current box, you may as well buy it, especially if you are looking to purchase Tyranid models. Number 8, play the mission. Whatever the mission is, play the mission. A lot of times I've seen people in games just totally forgetting about the mission. They're totally forgetting about the primary mission, as well as the mission rules. They're just kind of going into the game and trying to kill stuff. I mean, that is fun. If you're playing a friendly game, then crack on. It's all good and fun, right? But if you're playing a bit more competitively, it can be very easy to get sucked into the whole heat of the battle and just kind of forget what you're meant to be doing, and you just try to kill stuff. That is part of the game, don't get me wrong. But so many times I've seen players, and including myself in this in fact, where you feel like you're winning the game, but then the points tally comes up at the end and you've actually lost because you've not focused on the actual mission. So I always advise you, look at the mission every turn, look at the mission rules, as well as your secondaries as well. Play the mission. Number 9, speaking of playing, play a balanced list. We kind of alluded to it slightly earlier with the secondary objective scoring. If you're playing balanced, you're covering all grounds. You've got your heavy hitters, you've got your anti-tank, you've got your scoring units, you've got your screening units, you've got your buffing units and characters. Play a balanced list. A few times now this edition I've played an imbalanced list just to see how it fares. It doesn't seem to do that well. You're either losing on secondaries or you're losing on primaries, or you're just getting tabled because you're trying to score too much kind of thing. In my opinion, you've got to play balanced at this moment. Now, of course, when the codex does drop, it may all be different. We might get some super heavy monster mash list that's really OP. Then yeah, fair enough. But at this moment, I think you need to play a balanced list in order to score balanced, because your opponent is likely going to be doing something similar. They're not going to be playing imbalanced, and even if they are, there's still a chance that you don't win anyway. So I would always play for a balanced list. Number 10, a cheeky plug from our sponsor, the Magnet Baron. Edition proof your models with magnets. I've got a few units on the screen for you as examples. I've got Tyranids here and a Carnifex. Now, what do we mean by edition proof? Well, in 9th edition, certain weapons were good, and then when you come to 10th edition, those weapons potentially went bad. This happens every edition, every single edition. The heavy venom cans were good, then they're bad, then they're good, then they're bad. It happens all the time. So what I would advise for you to do is magnetize your minis. Do that because when the next edition comes in a few years time, when 11th drops, who knows, maybe the heavy venom cannon is the most amazing weapon ever, and you've gone and glued a Strangleform cannon on, for example. Speaking of the Tyranids, maybe the acid spray is really good right now, but really it's all about the flesh borer hives in the next edition. You don't know, so by gluing it on now, you've kind of messed up for later on. So if you are magnetizing now, you're safe for later. So that's what I would advise for my number 10. Go to the Magnet Baron to do that. Right, that is my top 10, guys. If you've got any more tips for not just me, but for other Necron players, start that again. If you've got any more tips for me or Tyranid players, put them down in the comments down below. Also, remember to subscribe if you are new around here. That does me a huge favour. And yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.